Anne?
Sorry?
Is Anne coming?
Who?
Anne.
I haven't heard.
I haven't heard from Anne. Anyone heard from Anne? Anne said she can't come to the Zoom briefing, so she's submitted her audio questions yet.
Okay. We'll start the meeting. To begin the meeting, I acknowledge the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. And I declare this meeting open at 5:04 p.m. This briefing session is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMC02. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up in the recording. Agenda briefings are open to the public to attend and observe. However, questions, deputations or petitions are presented at the ordinary council meeting. Councillors are reminded that there will be no debate-style discussion in this evening, as this will take place at the ordinary council meeting when the issue is set for decision. Attending the meeting tonight is Councillor Alexis Davey, Councillor Peter Gubler, Councillor Anita Lindeman, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor Lisa Glover, myself, Vivian McCarthy, and to my left we have CEO Temporary Tim Clinch and Manager Corporate Services Lauren Clifford, Administration Officer Corporate Services Samantha Farquhar, and to my right we have Acting Director of Finance and Corporate Morris Batalana. Have I pronounced that correctly? Thank you. And further to my right is Director of Operations and Roscoe Marshall. I'd like to welcome all those attending here in the gallery, one person there, and all those participating through the Shire's live stream service. And I'd also like to note that Michelle Dennis, Manager of Development Services, is in the gallery. At item 2.1, we have apologies from Diana Shand, Councillor Diana Shand, and Councillor Anne Mitchell. And at item 2.2, approve leave of absences. At our special council meeting on the 3rd of July, Council resolved at 112/24 to approve Councillor Diana Shand's request for a leave of absence for the ordinary council meeting to be held on the 28th of August 2024. At item 2.3, are there any other applications for leave of absence? We have no announcements this afternoon. Item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care should be taken by all councillors to ensure that a financial or impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Do councillors have any interest to declare? Councillor Gubler?
Just in relation to 9.1.2.
Have you got your microphone there, Peter?
Yeah, we do transport of their wedding guests up to their cathedral, that's all. So I don't know whether that's...
Thank you. Do we have a form for Peter too?
Hey? Yeah.
And any other declarations of interest? Item 5, public question time. There are no responses to previous public questions that were taken on notice. And at 5.2, public question time, 5.2, public question time, presentation items at 6.1, 6.2 and 6.3 are not applicable tonight for the agenda briefing. And then moving on to item 6.4, delegates' reports, once again is not applicable tonight. That takes us to item 7, confirmations of minutes. We have 7.1 and 7.2, the special council meeting held 3rd of July and the ordinary council meeting held 24th of July. Do councillors have any questions? Item 8, reports of committees. We have the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils meeting held on the 4th of June 2024. Do councillors have any questions? On to 9, reports of officers, and at 9.1 we have reports from the Director of Operations. At 9.1.1, the item is revestment of lot 150 on plan 2170 Bridge Street to the state. Director of Operations, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Madam President. If I may, it also may help councillors if you refer to figure 1 and figure 2, which are on pages 12 and 13 respectively. So you start at, yes, stay on that one, Sam, actually. Scroll down. So lot 150, which you can see on screen there, was identified during the process of actions relating to Council Resolution 107/22, which included dedication of lot 151 as a road, which is also known as Shortell Street. It was found the same deceased owners own lot 150, that is located between the Preston River and lots 1 to 4. Lot 150 has never been rated and has been under the care and maintenance of the Shire for an indeterminate period. Lots 1 and 2 are owned by the Shire freehold. Lots 3 and 4 were sold to Water Corporation for future infill sewer infrastructure. The existing right-of-way, lot 123, adjacent to lots 1 to 4, provides opportunities for future sewer extension, general access and recreational access. Lot 150 is prone to flooding, unsuitable for infrastructure, not required for access or recreation due to the existing right-of-way, and of no value to the Shire. For this reason, it is recommended that by request to the Minister, it be reinvested to the state. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So if this is revested to the state, the ongoing maintenance, I think I read somewhere, maybe in some answers to questions or whatever it was, the Shire still will continue to maintain that block to keep it presentable, is that correct? Or it'll sit with the state to be responsible for that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. The land will become unallocated Crown land if the Minister accepts the revestment. That will be the responsibility of DFIS.
Okay, can I just ask a follow-up to that? Other lands that are owned or that are the responsibility of DFS within the Shire, how well maintained are they?
Thank you, Councillor, but with all due respect, that's pretty broad.
Okay, well, I guess my concern around it is, you know, if the Shire stops maintaining it, taking care of it, is there a likelihood of it just becoming an overgrown mess? Or does the Shire provide feedback to DFS, if there is works required or anything along those lines then?
Madam President, if I may. Certainly, look, we're in contact and communication with DFS all the time. As an example, the mitigation activities we carry out, which is funded by DFS. If that's seen to be an issue, then of course we can allocate funds or apply for funds for those sort of areas. In the event that it's considered a higher risk, we can also elevate it and put it as part of some sort of short-term mitigation plan as well, where we can actually apply our own resources. And that's normally mechanical or spraying sort of treatments that we can use. In that area, given its close proximity to the river, it'd be mechanical.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Glover?
I'm probably a very vague direct question is like, what's the benefit of giving the land back as opposed to keeping it as shire land? I can hear that there's something about mitigation, but is that the sole reason or is there other reasons for it?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. It's one of these questions for council. Does council actually see any value in it? The officers are recommending that there is no value, given its location, its proximity to the river, the fact that there will be responsibility to maintain it, and it's not rateable. So we see it as more of a burden than an asset.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is that a hand up, Councillor? No. No. Thanks. If there are no other questions, we'll move on.
Sorry, may I ask a question, please? Just to be clear, lot 1, 2, 3 and 4 remain ours, just to be clear?
Director of
They're
Operations.
Madam
back.
President, if I may, just to clarify, so lot 1
Yeah.
and 2 are
Yes.
freehold owned by the Shire.
Yes,
Lot 3 and 4 were sold to Water Corporation for a future sewer infill. And you may recall that was for an
Yeah.
amount of $100,000.
okay, no, that's fine, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Are there any further questions on item 9.1.1? Okay, moving on to 9.1.2. This is the item for weddings at Linga Longa event application, and Councillor Goobler is going to leave the room. Yeah. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Councillor Goobler. I'd just like to note too for the live stream that Councillor Mitchell is with us after all. We actually put in an apology for you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, Director of Operations, would you like to speak to the report?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam President. So 9.1.2, the event application for weddings at Linga Longa. As noted in the executive summary, and it's very pleasing experience, the owners of Linga Longa are currently working with the Shire to lodge a retrospective development application for a number of land uses, including a reception centre. Until this development application is presented to Council and any pending approval, it is considered that whilst the event policy is yet to be finalised, events outside Linga Longa's pending development application should be determined by Council as temporary works and use. Linga Longa is a family-owned and operated business, well known for mountain bike events, provides economic benefits for Bridgetown, Greenbushes, Nannup, Baileyup and Donnybrook. This application for weddings for less than 100 people is considered low scale and off-site impacts are unlikely or low risk. The owners and their extended family live on the site. They are members of volunteer fire brigades. Accordingly, noise and fire risk will be managed with a vested interest. The owners welcome councillors for a site visit if required. This can be arranged upon request. It's recommended that we let love win and let Linga Longa weddings events be conditionally approved as per the executive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Davey?
I just have two quick questions. One's regarding, I think it's page 19 of the agenda briefing. It's the 4 dot point, so confirmation that the wedding organisers provide a licensed server in order for alcohol to be consumed at the wedding. I was just chasing clarification on that one, whether some sort of liquor licence is required or just someone within RSA when you talk about a licensed server.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Operations?
Thank you, Madam President. A licensed server is required under the Casual Licence Act. Under the Liquor and Licence Act. You can get a casual licence, but the service must have RSAs and appropriate qualifications.
Thank you. And you had a second question, Councillor Davey?
Yeah, hopefully another simple one. When it talks about the event fees and the camping fees, those rates, are they being applied per wedding or per application?
Thank you. Director of Operations.
Madam President, that's per application.
Okay. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Having spent a fair bit of time at the site between mountain biking and True Grit and so on, I think it's an amazing site. I'm just curious though, what's the nearest neighbours? So I know there's questions and queries around noise impact, and I can't really think of many other neighbours in a close proximity. Are there any neighbouring properties within a close proximity to where they're proposing to hold the functions?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. Councillor Patrick, haven't actually measured or identified the physical distance. Interestingly, I did actually attend the site to have a look for myself, and it's very difficult to see. I didn't see any other neighbours, even when we traversed up to the bike trail. I actually had a look at Google Maps today, and there are some that looks like they're within probably a kilometre or so. Another measure is that we haven't received any complaints over a period of time, so that's unfortunately a good measure. But I think the site visit would be quite important for councillors to get a real understanding actually of how private and secluded this area is. It's quite interesting. Yeah. And yeah, the family and where their residence is, they'd be the ones most impacted particularly by noise. So, and they've got very, very young twins, so I couldn't see that happening too often.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Any other questions? Councillor Glover.
What is the timeframe for approval being sought?
Sorry, Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. Councillor Glover, the timeframe is to 18th of January, which is one of the weddings that have been noted in the report. So nominally it's the day after, to the 19th, with the understanding that we will bring to council the development application well before then.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on to item 9.1.3. Oh, yes, please. Councillor Goobler has just rejoined the meeting. And we're now on item 9.1.3, the Harvest and Vehicle Movement Ban, SMS Communication Service and Policy. Director of Operations, would you like to speak to this report?
Certainly would, Madam President. I think this is almost a Yahoo moment. The Harvest and Vehicle Movement Ban, item 9.1.3, has been brought upon us with since the 2024 annual general meeting of electors. It was motion that council considered an instruction of a harvest ban notification policy, possibly using SMS service to both assist staff and inform the community. The motion was adopted by council in April 2024 under Council Resolution 62/24, requesting the CEO develop an SMS service policy and propose a budget for SMS communications of the harvest and vehicle movement bans directly to our community. This initiative was well received by the Bushfire Advisory Committee and many others that have provided positive anecdotal feedback. Earlier this year, we experienced harvest and vehicle movement bans that were communicated via Emergency WA. This means the communication is not practical for our farmers in the orchards or in the paddocks. It is arguably less effective and cause frustration for our farmers. The implementation of a harvest and vehicle movement ban SMS communication service will provide efficient and rapid communication of these bans, whilst potentially providing additional means of communication during emergency. The adoption of the draft policy as requested budget for the 24-25 fire season will greatly assist Shire staff and our community. Council's approval is recommended.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Are there any questions? Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 9.1.4, amendments to Town Planning Policy 9.2, ancillary dwelling and caretakers dwelling. Again, Director of Operations, would you like to speak to that report?
Thank you, Madam President. I normally would say that this is a procedural item, but whenever I say that, it goes off rails, so I won't. As per the executive summary, the Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up local planning policies are scheduled to be reviewed parallel with the review of the local planning scheme. This project will commence once Local Planning Strategy 2024 has been adopted by the West Australian Planning Commission. In the interim, local planning policies will be reviewed on an as-needs basis. One of the policies that have been identified for review is Town Planning Policy 9.20, Ancillary Accommodation. The need for review was identified due to an inconsistency within the definition for ancillary dwelling under the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015, and to ensure the Shire follows best practice and align with state government reforms to streamline housing approvals, something that's important to all of us. The report recommends that a similar approach be taken with regard to construction of ancillary dwellings on larger lots where the R codes are not applicable, such as lot zone rural residential, rural small holdings, general agriculture and priority agriculture that are prominent within our Shire. In addition, officers recommend further flexibility on larger lots, proposing a maximum area of 100 square metres to be permitted. Planning assessment will still be carried out at the building permit stage. However, the requirement for development applications will not be required where proposals comply with the policy. Accordingly, development costs and time will be reduced for applicants and planners. This is actually a good example of Council's opportunity to reduce red tape. So Council's approval of the executive recommendation would be appreciated.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Patrick.
Just one, and I apologise for this because I haven't reviewed the policy in its entirety. Is there a definition for larger lots within the policy or a proposed actual size? So in the summary it talks about, you know, recommend further flexibility on the larger lots. Is there an actual size as to what those larger lots are within the policy?
Yeah, there is definitions, sorry. So, yes, to answer your question, yes.
Any other questions? Councillor Glover.
Is this related anything to like granny flats as well when it looks at the larger lots? Is it looking at, is an ancillary dwelling the same as like a granny flat? So it brings it into line with that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, an ancillary dwelling can be used as a granny flat.
Thank you. Any other questions? That brings us to item 9.2, reports from the Director of Finance and Corporate. At 9.2.1, we have schedule of accounts paid at the 31st of July 2024. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Glover?
Yeah, I'm just curious about EFT 29036 being, I didn't see what it was, but it was $84,000 for a vehicle. So my question is it a new asset or a replacement asset, and was it budgeted for?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Director of Finance and Corporate. Would you like to delegate that? Or?
If I could delegate that through to either the CEO or the manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll just bring the attachment.
Sorry, Councillor Davey.
Page 111.
Well done. Yes, Director of Operations.
If we can just get to the page, but I'm relatively sure this is the new rubbish truck that we ordered last year and it was delivered this year. I wouldn't mind seeing the number plate registration, that'll confirm it for me.
Just through the chair,
Sorry?
through the,
799, so yeah, it is. Yeah.
right.
So yeah, it was budgeted for, and it was part of the asset replacement plan.
Thank you, Director of Operations.
Can I have a follow-up question, please, Madam President?
Yes, but Councillor Davey, did you have a question? All right,
Oh.
okay. Councillor Glover?
Just in line with that particular item, so are you indicating that it's a new asset or a replacement asset?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Director of Operations?
From Madam President, replacement.
Thank you. Councillor Davey?
Yeah, on the same page, so accounts paid, page 111 of 171 was EFT 29033 and then item 94286. So it was the mattresses, so $25,000 for disposal of the mattresses. And I was just wondering how frequently, is this an annual cost? It seems quite high. Is this something we're paying quarterly? I just wanted to understand a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Operations again.
Thank you, Madam President. It is an ongoing cost. There's also, obviously, there is revenue as well as cost, but we do subsidise mattress disposal so that we avoid dumping. So I think just from memory, we charge about $50 from memory, and it costs us about $90 to dispose. So, and that happens sort of organically, so in the sense that when mattresses come up to the tip, the container gets full. As soon as it's full, it goes, and we get a charge accordingly.
Thank you, Director of
Unless we
Operations.
send Michelle up there and no, won't say it. Can I just note there, Michelle's got her hand up. Is there anything to add to that?
Yes, sorry.
Actually, is
Manager of Development Services, Michelle Dennis.
was that one actually for Barley Up or Donnybrook?
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. What you said was what we're planning on doing, but we're actually making savings at the moment. So Hasty Waste strip the mattresses as they're delivered, and we pay him a fee for that service, which is basically cost recovery. Actually, we maybe make a little bit on that. But at the moment, that's what's happening because of the costs associated with containers. Since we got rid of the stockpile through the unfortunate fire, they're keeping on top of them as they come in. So they get placed, and when the attendant has time, they strip them. Scrap goes in one pile, timber goes in another pile, and then the fabric goes into the general waste. But it's about reducing volume. So yeah, it's an ongoing charge though, and the value is determined by how many mattresses we get that period. But, yeah.
So that's really cool. So that means
Thank
that
you, Manager
initiative's in
Development
place.
Services. Sorry, Director of Operations.
I was just said, it's good actually to see that initiative's already in place, so there's something we've talked about, so well done.
Any other questions? Moving on to item 9.2.1, schedule of accounts paid, as that, no, item 9.2.2, I beg your pardon. Item 9.2.2, making and advertising animals, environment and nuisance amendment local law 2024. Do councillors have any questions? Okay. Oh, Councillor Davey.
Yeah, I just had two questions on this one. So firstly, are there any further updates needed while we're in the process of review to catch up on the last 7 years?
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Thank you,
Direct-
Madam President. Look, it's not common to have a 7-year gap between when the Joint Standing Committee has asked you to do some amendments and when you get to this stage, so I'm not sure why that has occurred. However, once these amendments are made, that should be triggering the continuation of the process and the completion and finalisation of the local law. The Manager of Corporate Services has been involved in this more than I have, obviously, but that's my understanding. Any legal questions wrapped around this, I've encouraged, we'll probably take on notice and there's an external consultant that's been engaged to assist you through getting this process back on track. And if there are any legal questions, I'd love to get them, if you can, by email, and then we'll get the consultant to Zoom in at your council meeting to answer those.
Thank you, Director for Finance and Corporate. Manager Corporate Services, have you got anything to add there?
So at this present time, we have looked into the fact that it has been a longer period of time between the request for these changes to be made and the fact that are there any new updates that need to be made. If we were to do that, that would be obviously a bit more work to do. I was just looking up to see when the local law is due for its review in its entirety. Regardless of that, we need to just make these changes anyway. As a matter of cost savings, to gazette something is quite expensive, so to just do an amendment local law is a lot smaller, so it's a lot cheaper to do. And then when it comes time to reviewing all of our local laws, that's when we're looking to see if there's any other changes that need to be made. The consultant that we used did actually go and have a look to see if there are any other changes that they're going to get to the Joint Standing Committee, and if they're going to say, no, you need to go and change this. However, he discovered there was no changes that were required to be made.
Thank you, Manager Corporate Services. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Davey.
So that review by Conway Harbury, that was recent, was it? Okay.
Councillor Davey.
So I have a question about process. So when we have obligations such as these or previous actions arising from council meetings, what is the process for managing obligations to ensure that others haven't been missed? And how was this item picked up?
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Corporate Services, Finance and Corporate, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The processes that I've been exposed to in the past is that councillors should get, and I don't take this as a reflection upon the past, please, but councillors should get a status report of how every particular resolution has or has not been actioned or has been in progress. So I'm assuming you do get that. If you don't, maybe something you need to introduce. That triggers every month for councillors to ask the question, why have we not progressed this? So now I may lean towards either the CEO or other staff to let me know how this works here, but it is not common for something to be this long in the state of flux.
Thank you, Director of Finance and Corporate. Anything to add there, CEO Clinch?
Well, a bit reluctant to apportion blame. I think the issue is that the notices went direct to former Shire presidents and not to the corporate email address. So, for some reason they weren't passed on, and so I guess these commitments were overlooked. So it's about establishing good processes. It's probably a poor process by the committee to actually send it only to the president. It should go to both. But I think processes can be put in place to ensure that doesn't happen again. I mean, these type of things don't, you don't amend local laws regularly, and it's not every time that the Joint Standing Committee pick up issues either. So, but I think that's where the problem initiated. I think that's why it's been so long.
So we can take that and look at the process and the controls around it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Director of Corporate and Finance.
Well, just one more comment, if I can, is that it's probably more prudent to engage an external consultant to do your review of your local laws in the future, though they say they're going to make it easier and less complex, to engage them to get you from the beginning to the end, rather than it be left in a state of flux as this has, and correspondence going to the wrong areas. That engaged consultant will make sure the process is done in a timely manner, and that's, again, just how I've done it in the past.
Thank you. Councillor Davey?
Yeah, just a clarifying question. Could we perhaps get more information in a workshop around obligation management in general? So like how you manage your different compliance obligations? Because it sounds like the local laws is a particularly, a different process to general obligation management, but on hearing that there is a reporting process for progress on previous council resolutions, I'd just really like to understand what the process is for obligation management.
Thank you, councillor Davey. We can flag that for a workshop item. Okay, moving on to, any further questions before I do move on? Item 9.2.3. Making and advertising Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up Waste Amendment Local Law 2024. Do councillors have any questions? Okay. Moving on to 9.3, reports from the Chief Executive Officer. 9.3.1, the adoption of community grants and donations policy. CEO Clinch, would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Madam President. So councillors would be aware that there has been some quite extensive workshop discussions about reviewing your current policy and I guess your financial commitments in this space. The focus has really been on the policy, making I guess the changes and making the policy more in line with council's I guess strategic objectives, making the approval processes more accountable and transparent by making it a council decision more than an administrative decision. I think the approach under the current policy, there's quite a number of different categories of grant and contribution, and the proposed policy amendments I think simplify that a little bit and make a lesser number of categories. The other part of this proposal is that the allocation, the annual allocation for grants, donations, etc., has historically been linked to rate income, a percentage, and it's intended to change that to a set amount that can be reviewed periodically. Maybe every few years the council would review it, but rather than linking it to rates, council will set an amount each year.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Davey.
Yeah, have the impacted events holders moving to service level agreements and the tourism associations with reduced budgets, have they been advised of the changes in case they'd like to make a deputation?
Thank you, councillor Davey. CEO Clinch.
Thanks, Madam President. The two tourism associations have been contacted to let them know that of the proposals and inviting them to attend next week's council meeting if they wish. We have had a response from one of those groups who've indicated at this stage they won't take that offer up and that they'll work within the lesser amount, notwithstanding reserving some rights, I guess, to come back to council in future and discuss how that reduction might affect them. But I think they, in principle, accept that council's made a decision or has indicated they're going to make a decision. With respect to the events, no, we haven't had that discussion because really the essence of what's been offered isn't changing. We've provided support in the past. We're providing support in the draft budget. I think the main discussions will happen between now and next year because this is only a one-year commitment about potentially about entering into a 3-year service agreement for each of those events and clarifying a little bit more detail what actually is being provided to that value. At the moment, it's quite ad hoc. So I think the intent would be to have a service agreement with those groups, which clearly articulates what services or assistance the council is going to provide those events.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Any further questions, councillor Davey?
Yeah, so in relation to the reduction to the visitor centre service level agreements, I anticipate this question will need to be taken on notice, but could we get some background information on what has what work's been done in the past towards development of a tourism strategy for the Shire. So if we're reducing spending in that area, to know what the long-term vision is there.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. CEO Clinch?
I'm not aware of a tourism strategy, but one of the arguments, I guess, in support of council reducing its commitment to the local tourism level is that council has significantly increased its spending at the sub-regional level through both the Warren Blackwood Alliance Tourism Initiative and through the Bungeo Tourism Initiative. So, but I'm not aware that council has a tourism strategy. Manager of my corporate services is shaking her head, so that confirms that. I mean, it's not something that's in council's strategic plan, council plan. It's something that council, if they wanted to, could progress. But yeah, at the moment, council allocates its resources both sub-regionally and locally.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Any further questions? Moving on to item 10, elected member motions, of which previous notice has been given. Do councillors have any questions regarding item 10.1.1, the annual review and update of the Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up Workforce Plan? Councillor Glover?
My question is around process for employment or for staff. Does the Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up currently have a policy and procedure around annual staff performance reviews and position descriptions?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. CEO Clinch?
Yes, they do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Davey?
Yeah, just looking for clarity on whether Councillor Glover is proposing an internal annual review or external using consultant funds, because it wasn't clear to me when I read the...
Thank you, Councillor Davey. CEO Clinch?
I don't want to speak for Councillor Glover, but we have had some discussions about this, and I guess I'm assuming that Councillor Glover may be moving an amendment at the council meeting to clarify that it be done using in-house resources rather than consultants. So that's my, without putting words into Councillor Glover's mouth, that's
just mindful of protecting Councillor Glover from presenting a debate-style response, so I'm throwing them first to CEO Clinch for redirection. Any further questions? Councillor Patrick?
So following on from that, understanding that the HR resources within the Shire administration, I think it's a part-time position, do we know within the organisation, is there actually currently the skill set to review and construct a proper workforce plan, which also needs to take into account the availability of external contracting resources and those kind of things? Do we believe currently the Shire has that skill set in-house if this was to proceed?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. CEO Clinch?
Well, I guess in answering that question, I'm just conscious I don't want to be seen to be debating the motion from Councillor Glover. I mean, at the end of the day, there are a variety of skills in-house. I would suggest this document would be, if it was done in-house, would be done at the executive level. Does the executive have the capability? I'm sure they do. Do they have the capacity? Well, they probably do, but something else wouldn't get done. Yeah, it could be done in-house, but and I guess I provided some officer comment in there that did talk about some of the benefits of an external view, but at the same token, I understand that costs money and it's a balancing act.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Councillor Glover?
With this item, I had requested to have the attachments of the last two workforce plans as well. So they just haven't been included in the attachment. That's the context of this. Can you please explain or inform what the cost was of the most recent workforce plan? Because I believe that was outsourced, is that right?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. CEO Clinch?
We'll
take on
probably have to
notice?
take that on notice,
Thank
but
you.
we can certainly find out and email that to all councillors.
Thank you. Any other questions? Moving on, new business of an urgent nature, we have none. But we do have a discussion around our first attempt to introduce en bloc. Would you like to take that lead, CEO Clinch, or
I'm going to ask the manager.
Manager Development Services? Would you like to introduce that too? Yep.
Okay, so at the workshop we discussed about going en bloc or adoptions by exception, where I'll just get up some information. Sorry, thought we were doing this after the meeting. So.
So while you're finding it, just a reminder, councillors, the reason we're doing this is that your current standing orders actually set this process out, that you can consider agenda items by exclusion. And so the discussion at a recent workshop about meeting procedures was to maybe trial this process to see how it works. The arguments in favour is that it's you spend your time dealing with the matters that require debate rather than spending time on items that really are going to be carried without debate. So the intent was to do a trial, no specified timeline, but I think that maybe 3 months, and then councillors will give feedback on whether you wish to continue.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Manager Corporate Services is going to step us through the process, aren't you?
So as we spoke about before, the process is that adoption by exception, or also known as en bloc to some people. The process is a procedure that allows for council to adopt multiple reports or recommendations in one resolution without the need for the separate decision on each item. So this process enables the council to effectively handle routine matters that are generally agreed upon. So they focus on their attention on items that require more in-depth discussion during the meeting. So why does council use the adoption for exception? Council uses the adoption by exception process to ensure meetings are conducted effectively, allowing more time to be spent on items that may need further deliberation. It's important to note that just because an item isn't included as an adoption by exception resolution doesn't mean that it's unimportant or it lacks value. It's rather that it indicates that the time is not anticipated to need to have additional debate on that item based on the information and the recommendations provided to the councillors. Important points to note, no further discussion on adopted items. So if an item is included in the adoption by exception resolution, it will be adopted without additional discussion during the meeting. This does not mean that council considers these items less important, but rather they are viewed as straightforward or uncontroversial based on the information available. Conditions for exclusion. So certain items cannot be excluded in the adoption by exception process, including items that are required for an absolute majority, items where a conflict of interest has been disclosed, items on which a council member wishes to ask a question, make a statement or propose a different motion. How to address concerns. If a councillor member believes an item warrants further discussion, they can request its exclusion from the adoption by exception resolution. To do so, they must provide written notification to the CEO by 3 p.m. the day before the meeting. So we've now created a form for councillors to use. When we send out the agenda to councillors, they'll get a list of the reports that will be put into the en bloc or the adoption by exception, and then you'll get a form that you can use to pull those items from en bloc. They'll need to be received by the CEO by 3 p.m. the day before the meeting though. And you'll need to state the reason for the exclusion. So there's drop-down boxes on the form which states the reasons why you may be pulling that item from en bloc. Obviously, if it's that you're going to be proposing an alternative motion, you'll need to put that in writing on the form. and there's some notes on the bottom of the form which will state that if there are several alternative motions submitted for the one item, it will just be on, the council will consider the item that was received first. And also noting that while permission can be sought during the meeting to address an item not previously excluded, items notified in advance will be prioritised. And so during the meeting, you can actually request it if you haven't done it previously the day before. You'll just need to do that to a presiding member at the meeting. The adoption by exception resolution, or the en bloc, will be addressed at the beginning of the meeting, and the items included in the resolution will not be individually discussed unless they have been excluded by a council member in accordance with the rules outlined. And so if members of the public, just to make it very clear that if the item is something that the member of the public is thinking is going to be discussed a bit later on the line, they'll need to know that it won't be, because if it's still included in en bloc, it will need to be pulled for that item to be discussed. The adoption by exception process is designed to help the council manage its time effectively, allowing for more detailed discussion on the matters that may require it. We understand that every item is important to those who it affects, and we want to assure that the council takes all items seriously regardless of how they are processed. If you have any concerns or questions about the adoption by exception process and how it works, or any of the specific items, if you can contact the Shires Administration Office, we'll be able to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Corporate Services. Any questions? Councillor Glover?
Yeah, if I may, how will councillors know which alternate motion has been received first? Is there a way of letting everyone know that this is the one that's been received? Because it'll be difficult to prepare your debate unless you know.
Thanks, Councillor Glover. CEO Clinch?
So the reason why you have a 3 p.m. Tuesday cut-off is that allows the CEO to arrange for a running sheet to be prepared, which would list all the items to be excluded from the en bloc, and that would also contain any alternative motions in order. So all councillors would receive that Tuesday, before everyone went home, and that gives councillors the whole day to consider those alternative motions that may be put forward. So it's important to note, say for example you had two councillors had pulled the same item with alternative motions, and so the councillor that got in first has first priority. If that motion is carried, the second councillor's motion is not considered, so they'll have to consider either amending the first one or giving foreshadowing that they will vote against it and move their alternative if it's lost. So, but you'll see all that in like a running sheet, a table that will contain all the details of the next day's council meeting.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Any other questions? Councillor Glover?
What evidence will show which alternate motion came first? Is it that there will be, times indicated, or, because you don't want it to just seem like the favoured one comes in and, that one came first and your one came second or third. So what evidence will show which alternate motion came first?
I would imagine the email stamp, but CEO Clinch?
No, I think you just need to have trust in the process and an integrity of the staff, and if you don't think that process is going to work, don't do this. If you don't have the faith that the CEO of this organisation is going to that they're going to put their influence on it, I would strongly suggest you don't do this. If you don't have that trust, there's no point doing it.
Thank you, CEO Clinch. Councillor Mitchell?
It would be my understanding that when you send in an indication to the officers to withdraw things from block or amended motions, that you councillor DL them, so you'd be able to see. Yeah, I'm just assuming that's what we do.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. You assume we'd be doing what?
Just when you send something in to extract something and, to deal with it, you just councillor DL the whole group in so they'll know, everyone will know what order things have come in. That's the standing, when you actually contact the officers to withdraw something from the en bloc, it's an email usually. I think it has to be an email, has to be in writing. And that way you just, like all other communication, you just CC the rest of the councillors in.
In
So
the
you-
event that doesn't happen, I think we have full faith in the executive team. Yep.
Not every, that is a great suggestion, but sometimes councillors don't do that and they just email direct. So, but I think it is a really common sense suggestion.
Thank you. Councillor Lindemann.
I was just going to ask if it is best practice that everyone is aware of that, because you can pull an item from en bloc. It'd probably save someone else having to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get the same emails for everyone who's concerned about a particular item. So you only need one person. So I'm just
Oh, so,
put everyone in. Everyone knows it's already out. It's already
Okay.
been pulled out. Yeah.
all right.
Without an alternative motion, just that you want to debate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right. There is no reason to close the meeting to the public, so item 12 we can skip. Moving on to item 13, closure. The next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 28th of August 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook, Balingup Council Chamber, and I declare the meeting closed at 6 p.m.